quick note about the third villain in the film, who I think is Dr.
Oh,
Frederick
sure. Sorry.
Chilton.
Sorry. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I think that it's interesting because when you look at the kind of three, like, quote unquote villains, one of them is definitely more villainous than the others, but at the same time, they're all kind of pursuing a motive, and that's sort of what drives every single one of them. Like for Buffalo Bill, like he just is taking on what he feels is any identity that suits him at the time, and he's just trying to, he's just very disturbed, he's no sense of self, and he's just trying to figure out who that is. For Chilton, he has obviously his own ideas of what he wants, and then for Hannibal Lecter, he has, of course, his goals of just, just getting the hell out of there and maybe seeing outside for a
Yeah,
little
and if
bit.
it wasn't clear, Dr. Chilton is he's an asshole. Like, yeah,
He's
and
terrible.
he's so
He's
schmarmy and like,
smarmy. Yeah.
God, and
Oh,
he's
I
just
love.
like he's so into it, in it for himself, and like that line though too when Clarice shows up and he goes, the Baltimore is a pretty cool town if you have the right person to show you around. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I love when
But
he's kind of hitting on her, and she's like, "I
yeah,
graduated from UVA, doctor. It's not a charm school." Like saying, like, "I'm here for a
yeah.
reason. I'm not just a pretty face that they picked because they knew that he would want to talk to me. I do the work." And
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
And of course, like his ultimate fate is another thing where like Lecter, obviously, like you were saying from the marketing, that's what's
Hmm.
luring people in. Like you're going to this movie expecting there's Hannibal the cannibal, he's a serial killer, he eats people, he's the villain of the film, and you could
Yeah,
argue that he's the least villainous of the three,
absolutely.
or maybe the second. I don't know. There could be an argument made, but he's definitely not the main villain of the film. Obviously, that's Buffalo Bill. And at the end, when he's waiting for Dr. Chilton to get off the plane, it's sort of like you're like, yeah, I want you to eat that guy.
It's like,
So
do it.
it's like a little bit of
Success.
subversion in the audience, right? To be like,
Yeah,
and that's done throughout the entire film, to be like Lecter is you kind of root for him. Um,
absolutely. You do.
but
Yeah,
it's so like, again, like this is so hard to do in a film where you're rooting for the bad guy, but you still give a shit about the about the protagonist. Like
definitely. Yeah,
like you want Clarice to succeed in this film, but you also want Lecter to get away.
yeah.
Like, and that's crazy thing
It's a
to
duet.
navigate an audience through, because ultimately he is still a villain,
Hmm.
and but I mean, you don't want to, you'd never want to see him. You don't. It's never like in the film you're like, oh, I don't think that guy should escape, right?
Hmm.
But if he does, I mean,
As long as
shit
he
can
doesn't come
happen, man.
after me.
So,
Parts of things coming back that they kind of touch or allude on earlier on that kind of come back in the film. Two quick things. So
sure,
for the introduction to Hannibal Lecter, you know, first off, it's a great method of storytelling where Chilton's showing her a picture and saying like, "Oh, he did this to a nurse when he basically got out and attacked her," and he shows her a picture. We never see the picture, which I think is way
yes,
more effective because, of course, our imaginations are going to be far more drastic and gory and gruesome than anything they could actually show us, because not knowing is part of what makes it so tantalizingly horrifying. But during that conversation, he mentions that when Hannibal Lecter attacked that nurse, his pulse never got above 85. But later on, when he's escaping, there's a paramedic that he mentions that the patient has a pulse of 84, which again is a nice little thing that comes back from
oh
his mention
shit, I didn't
earlier
notice
on.
that. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
so
All
it
right.
kind of demonstrates like how like calm and like collected he is despite everything that he's doing, which just adds another elevation to the character of like how he's just, as Chilton says, he's a pure psychopath, so rare to capture one alive. From a research point of view, he's our most prized asset, because he is like, I
Mhm.
get that it's terrible to say, but like he's a fascinating person, and because he is so cognitive and so lucid, he would be absolutely astounding to study. So I on the one hand, I slightly get where Chilton's coming from with having them as like this prized asset that he just wants to study and like dig into his mind and find out what makes this guy tick. But doesn't make Chilton a good person. Still a
Well, Chilton's
smarmy,
not doing it for that reason. Chilton's
but
doing it for his own personal
his
gain.
own gain.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
everything Chilton
he
does is
wants to get out of there himself.
um
Yeah.
but I do feel like, I mean, obviously Lecter's character is a lot of his characters built around manners. which is
Yes.
very interesting as well.
Very polite.
He very,
Yeah.
very polite, very, but
It
also
would be
very
considered
aggressive.
rude to go after Clarice
That's
Starling.
right.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
says that. He also thanks Barney, who is the orderly
yeah.
at the I don't know what the
Prison
prison
Institute.
institute prison. And he, even when the lights come on, he says thank you, Barney. And when he's all kind of when he's put into the I don't know what you would call that, the stand up cage
The
thingy.
restraint. Yeah.
Thank you. The restraint is he says something to Barney too. He says Barney, like, so he has this sort of like respect for people that treat each
With
other
respect.
with respect and
Yeah.
kindness, and he which obviously Clarice picks up on.